I walked into my daughter's nursery at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, and there was a stranger holding my baby. Not just any stranger. A Korean woman in her early 30s, wearing an expensive cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my first car, standing at Neri's crib with my 6-month-old daughter cradled in her arms like she had every right to be there. She looked up when I entered, smiled. That particular Korean smile I'd learned to recognize over 3 years of marriage. The one that looked polite on the surface but carried layers of judgment underneath. "You must be Ade," she said in perfect English with that subtle accent that marked her as someone who'd spent significant time abroad but was unmistakably Korean. "I'm Ji-won, Min-jae's sister." I felt the words hit me like a physical blow. Sister. Min-jae had a sister. A sister he'd never mentioned in 3 years of marriage, 2 years of dating before that, countless conversations about family and history and the complicated dynamics of the Kong legacy. A sister who was currently holding my 6-month-old daughter like it was the most natural thing in the world while I stood frozen in the doorway of my own home, trying to process what the hell was happening. "I didn't know Min-jae had a sister," I said slowly, my voice steady despite the alarm bells screaming in my head. "Oh." She looked surprised. Genuinely surprised, or performing surprise. I couldn't tell yet. "He didn't tell you about me?" Well, that's complicated family history, I suppose. We've been estranged for several years. But Halmini called me last week and said it was time to come home. That the family needed me. That you needed help with the children. Every word she spoke raised more questions than it answered. But the biggest, most urgent question was the one I asked next. "How did you get into my house?" Halmini gave me her keycard. Ji-won shifted Neri in her arms. My daughter, who should have been sleeping, was now awake and staring at this stranger with those big dark eyes that were a perfect blend of Min-jae and me. "She said you'd be at your meeting until 3, and that I should make myself comfortable. Get acquainted with my niece and nephew." She said it so casually. Like breaking into someone's home and holding their infant without permission was just a normal Tuesday afternoon activity. "Where's Jian?" I asked, my protective instincts kicking into overdrive. "In the garden with the nanny. Playing with his dinosaurs, I think. Sweet boy. Very polite." She smiled at Neri. "This one is beautiful. Such an interesting mix of features. You can see both of you in her." The way she said interesting mix made my skin crawl. "I need you to give me my daughter," I said. Not a request. A statement. "Of course." Ji-won walked toward me, and I had to resist the urge to snatch Neri from her arms. Instead, I accepted my baby with as much grace as I could manage, immediately feeling better once Neri was against my chest where she belonged. "I didn't mean to overstep," Ji-won said, but her tone suggested she didn't actually think she'd overstepped at all. "Halmini said you'd be delighted to have family help, especially someone who understands Korean child-rearing traditions. She mentioned you've been having some difficulties with cultural integration." I wanted to ask what the hell that meant. What difficulties Halmini had told this stranger about. What else they'd discussed about my life, my family, my children. But before I could respond, I heard the front door open. Min-jae's voice calling out, "Ade, why are there suitcases in the entryway?" Suitcases. This woman had brought suitcases into my home. I watched Min-jae appear in the nursery doorway. Watched his face go through the same shock I'd experienced. Watched recognition dawn, followed by something I couldn't quite identify. Confusion? Anger? Fear? "Ji-won," he said. His voice was flat, controlled. The CEO mask clicking into place. "What are you doing here?" "Halmini invited me home," she said simply. "Said it was time to heal the family. Time for me to meet your wife and children. Time to get out." The words were so cold, so final, that even Ji-won seemed momentarily shaken. "Min-jae, get out of my house. Now. Your mother invited me. She wants me here. I don't care what my mother wants. This is my home, my family, and you are not welcome here." The tension in the room was suffocating. Neri started to fuss against my chest, picking up on the emotional electricity crackling between her father and this aunt she'd just met. Ji-won's expression shifted. The polite mask cracked just slightly, showing something harder underneath. "I see. So that's how it is. After everything our family did for you, after everything I sacrificed." Sacrificed. Min-jae's laugh was bitter. "Is that what you're calling it now? Sacrifice. I gave up my position in the company for you. I stepped aside so you could be CEO. You were forced to resign after embezzling $2 million from the family trust. That's not sacrifice. That's consequences. The words hung in the air like a detonation. Embezzlement. Min Jae's sister had embezzled from the family, and Halmiani had invited her back into our home, into our children's lives. If you're feeling that same cold dread I felt in that moment, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I was about to discover about Ji-won's return would make embezzlement look like the least of our problems. Ji-won's face hardened. That was never proven. Because the family covered it up to avoid scandal. Because Halmiani paid back every dollar you stole and buried the evidence. Because we protected you. Min Jae moved closer, his body language protective, positioning himself between Ji-won and me. And this is how you repay that protection? By coming back when you're specifically not wanted. I was invited by the head of the family. My mother is no longer the head of this family. She stepped down 6 months ago, which means I decide who is welcome in this house. And you are not. I'd never seen Min Jae like this. In 3 years together, through board battles and succession crises and public scandals, I'd seen him angry, frustrated, determined. But this was different. This was personal in a way that made the corporate warfare look like practice. Ji-won turned to me. You should know the truth about what happened. About why I left. About what they did to me when I tried to protect. Ji-won. Min Jae's voice was a warning. Don't. She deserves to know. About the family she married into. About the secrets they keep. About. I said don't. About the child. The room went silent. Even Neri stopped fussing. What child? I asked quietly. Ji-won smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Ask your husband. Ask him about the child I gave up. The one the family made disappear. The one they. Get out. Min Jae pulled out his phone. I'm calling security. You have 60 seconds to leave voluntarily before I have you forcibly removed. You can't do this. Halmiani isn't here. And when she gets here, we're going to have a very long conversation about boundaries and manipulation and why bringing you back was the worst decision she's made in a series of terrible decisions. Ji-won looked at me one more time. Be careful, Ade. This family destroys everything they can't control. I learned that the hard way. So did the woman before you. So will you, eventually. Then she walked out, her expensive heels clicking on our marble floors, leaving those suitcases in our entryway like a promise that she'd be back. The front door closed. Min Jae immediately pulled out his phone, making calls, changing security codes, alerting the building's front desk, calling his mother. And I stood there holding my daughter, processing what had just happened, one terrible question repeating in my mind. What child? That evening, after Jian was in bed and Neri was finally asleep after hours of fussiness from the day's disruption, Min Jae and I sat in our living room with a bottle of wine neither of us was drinking. You need to tell me everything, I said. He nodded, rubbed his face with both hands. That gesture I'd learned meant he was about to say something he really didn't want to say. Ji-won is my younger sister. 3 years younger. We were close as children. She was brilliant. Wanted to work in the company. Went to Harvard Business School. Came back ready to prove herself. And she got involved with one of our biggest competitors. Park Industries. He paused. Not just professionally. Romantically. She fell in love with their CEO's son. Started passing him information. Company secrets. Merger plans. Strategy documents. Corporate espionage, I said. She called it love. He laughed bitterly. Said they were going to get married. That the families would merge. That it would be this great dynasty uniting two companies. What happened? He used her. Got everything he needed. Then dumped her the day she told him she was pregnant. My stomach dropped. The child. She was 6 months pregnant when we found out about the espionage. The board wanted her arrested. Prosecuted. Made an example of. But my mother. He shook his head. My mother made a deal. Ji-won would resign quietly. Go abroad. The baby would be adopted into a family with no connection to either company. The embezzlement charges would be dropped if she never came back. She was exiled, I said slowly. While pregnant. With no support. She had support. Financial support. My mother set her up with everything she needed. Made sure the adoption was handled properly. Made sure Ji-won had a future elsewhere. Just not here. How long ago was this? 10 years. I processed that. So she has a child. Somewhere. That's 10 years old. That she gave up because your family forced her to. We didn't force, he stopped. Started again. The situation was complicated. She'd committed corporate espionage. She'd stolen money. She was in love with the wrong person and got pregnant. And instead of helping her, the family exiled her. It wasn't that simple, wasn't it? I looked at him. Your family has a pattern, Min-jae, of using people, of manipulating situations, of deciding what's best for everyone without asking. Your mother did it to us. Multiple times. Did it to Jian. And apparently, she did it to your sister 10 years ago. Ji-won made her choices. Did she? Or did she make the only choices your family left available to her? He didn't have an answer for that. And now, I continued, your mother has brought her back. Without telling us. Gave her access to our home. To our children. What? I don't know. Yes, you do. Because this is what Halmiani does. She tests. She manipulates. She creates crises to see how we respond. I stood up, started pacing. What's the test this time? What is she trying to prove? That we can handle threats from inside the family, not just outside it, a voice said from the doorway. We both turned. Halmiani stood there in her traditional purple hanbok, looking as regal and unbothered as always. You gave her a key to our home, I said. Not a question, an accusation. I invited my daughter back into the family, she corrected. After 10 years of exile. After she's proven herself, rebuilt her life, made amends, shown genuine growth. She deserves a chance at redemption. She embezzled from the family, Min-jae said. She made mistakes when she was young and heartbroken. As did you. As did I. As everyone in this family has at some point. Halmiani walked into the room like she owned it. Which, technically, through various financial structures, she partially did. The question is whether we believe in forgiveness. Whether family means something beyond convenience. Don't, I said. Don't turn this into some moral lesson about forgiveness when you orchestrated this without telling us. Without asking. Without any regard for our consent or our safety or our children's well-being. Your children's well-being is exactly why I brought her back. Halmiani sat down in the chair like this was a normal family chat and not an ambush. Neri will need protection. From the xenophobia. From the colorism. From all the forces that will try to diminish her because she's mixed. Ji-won has experience with being othered by this family. With being cast out. With surviving exile. She can teach Neri how to be strong in ways you cannot. By breaking into our house and holding our baby without permission? I asked. That's your idea of protection? By being present. By being family. But, she threatened us. Min-jae interrupted. When I told her to leave, she made threats about revealing family secrets. She was hurt. Lashing out. Surely you of all people understand how pain makes us say things we don't mean. Halmiani looked at me. Didn't you say things you didn't mean when you thought Jian was being replaced? When the pregnancy announcement triggered your fears? The comparison stung because it was partially true, but also completely different. I didn't commit corporate espionage, I said. I didn't steal from the family. I didn't. You recorded me without my permission. Gathered evidence to use against me if necessary. Threatened to expose me publicly. Halmiani's expression didn't change. We all do what we must to protect ourselves. Ji-won is no different. The casual way she revealed she knew about my recording sent chills down my spine. How long have you known about that? I asked. Since the day you made it. I have excellent security. Both digital and human. She smiled slightly. I expected you to use it. Was proud when you didn't. Showed restraint. Showed that you understood when to hold power and when to wield it. This is insane, Min-jae said. You're justifying espionage, theft, and now breaking and entering because it's all some kind of lesson? Some test. I'm saying that family is complicated. That holding grudges for 10 years serves no one. That Ji-won has paid for her mistakes and deserves a chance to be part of this family again. Halmiani stood. She will be staying at the estate. Not here. I understand boundaries, contrary to what you believe. She will have supervised visits with the children. She will attend family dinners. And you will give her a chance. Because that's what family does. And if we refuse? I asked. Then you prove that love and forgiveness only apply when it's convenient. That your beautiful speeches about chosen family and second chances were just words. She walked toward the door. Paused. Ji-won made mistakes. But she is still my daughter. Still Min-jae's sister. Still Jian and Neri's aunt. And she deserves the same grace you demanded for Jian when the board questioned his legitimacy. She left. And I realized we'd just been checkmated again. Comment below if you think Halmiani has finally gone too far. or if she has a point about forgiveness and family. Because what happened over the next 3 weeks would test every boundary we thought we'd established. The first family dinner with Ji-won was exactly as awkward as you'd imagine. Halmiani had invited us to the estate for Sunday lunch. A casual family meal, she'd called it. Nothing casual about it when you're sitting across from a woman who broke into your house and threatened your family a week ago. Ji-won arrived looking polished and professional. Different from the cream suit. This time in a soft pink dress that probably cost a fortune but looked understated. Her hair was styled in a way that made her look younger. Softer. It was clearly calculated. She'd brought gifts. For Jian, an expensive Lego set, the massive dinosaur one he'd been wanting for months. For Neri, a traditional Korean hanbok in infant size, beautifully embroidered. I wanted to apologize, she said after we'd all sat down. For last week. For showing up unannounced. For everything. I was nervous. Handled it poorly. I'm sorry. It sounded rehearsed. But also genuine. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Why did you want to come back? Seorin asked. She'd been invited too. Halmiani's way of showing this was about the whole family. After 10 years. Why now? Ji-won looked down at her hands. Because I'm tired of running. Tired of being the family shame. Tired of watching from a distance while my brother builds a life, and I. She paused. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But I've spent 10 years paying for them. Working in Seoul at a mid-level position because my family name is both an asset and a liability. Watching my nephew grow up through photos Halmiani sends. Never meeting him. Never being allowed to be an aunt. You chose that, Min-jae said. You made decisions that had consequences. I was 23 years old and in love with someone who used me. Yes, I made bad decisions. But the punishment has far exceeded the crime, don't you think? $2 million, Min-jae said. You stole $2 million. I moved money between accounts to help fund a startup. One that I thought my boyfriend and I would run together. One that I had every intention of paying back once it succeeded. It wasn't theft. It was embezzlement, Min-jae finished. It was embezzlement. Let's not sugarcoat it. Fine. It was embezzlement. And I've paid it back. Every dollar. With interest. Over the past 10 years. Ji-won looked at him. I've done everything the family asked. Stayed away. Built a new life. Proved I could be trusted again. What more do you want from me? I want you to acknowledge that what you did was betrayal. Not just moving money. Not just a mistake. You betrayed this family. You put the company at risk. I was in love. Ji-won's voice rose. I was 23 and in love, and I thought I was building a future. And yes, I made terrible decisions. But I was also abandoned. By my boyfriend. By my family. By everyone I thought cared about me. Do you know what it's like to give birth alone? To hand your baby to strangers because your own mother told you that child would destroy everything? To spend 10 years wondering if your son, yes, it was a boy, is happy, healthy, loved. The raw pain in her voice was undeniable. Jin had been quiet through all of this, playing with his new Lego set in the corner of the room. But at the mention of a boy, of a son, he looked up. You have a son? He asked Ji-won. She turned to him, smiled through tears. I did. I do. Somewhere. He'd be about 10 now. I think about him every day. Why don't you see him? Because when you give a child up for adoption, you can't just decide later you want them back. They have a family, a life, parents who love them. It wouldn't be fair to disrupt that. Does he know about you? Jin asked. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. I hope he's happy. That's all I can hope for. I watched this exchange, and despite everything, despite my anger and suspicion and protectiveness, I felt something shift. Because Ji-won was describing a pain I understood. The pain of loving a child you have complicated connections to. Of wondering if love is enough. Of fearing you're not enough. I'm sorry, Jin said simply. That's sad. It is, Ji-won agreed. But it also taught me something important. That family is precious. That time with the people you love shouldn't be wasted. That's why I asked Halmiani if I could come home. Not to cause problems. Not to threaten anyone. Just to be part of the family again. To know my nephews and my niece. To not miss any more years. She looked at Min-jae. I know I hurt you. Hurt the family. And I know one lunch doesn't erase 10 years of mistakes. But I'm asking for a chance. To prove I've changed. To be your sister again. To be Jin and Neri's aunt. Please. Min-jae didn't answer immediately. I could see him processing. Weighing. Calculating. Finally. One chance. You get one chance. You overstep again. You threaten my family again. You do anything that suggests you're not here for the right reasons, and you're gone. Permanently. Thank you, G1 said. That's all I'm asking for. Halmiani smiled like she'd just won the lottery, and I wondered if we'd just made a terrible mistake. Over the next 2 weeks, G1 became a regular presence. She'd come to the estate when we visited Halmiani. She'd see Jian during his weekend custody time with Siorin. Apparently Halmiani had arranged for them to accidentally overlap. She'd send thoughtful gifts. Photos from Min-jae's childhood she'd kept. Recipes for traditional Korean dishes with notes about family memories. She was charming, helpful, seemingly genuine in her desire to reconnect. Jian loved her immediately. She'd play Legos with him for hours. She knew all about dinosaurs. Apparently she'd studied paleontology briefly before switching to business. She taught him Korean idioms and traditional games. With Neri, she was sweet, gentle. She'd hold her and sing Korean lullabies. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Little things. The way she'd glance at documents on our counter when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she asked questions about Min-jae's work that seemed casual but were suspiciously specific. The way she'd make comments about Neri that seemed complimentary but had barbs hidden underneath. She's so beautiful. Such an interesting skin tone. Darker than we expected, but beautiful. Her hair has such texture. Different from Korean baby hair. Will it stay like that? I love how expressive she is. So much more animated than Korean babies. Must be the Nigerian influence. Each comment delivered with a smile. Each one technically not offensive. But together, they formed a pattern that made my skin crawl. The breaking point came 3 weeks after G1's return. I'd gone to a morning meeting at Confronting. Min-jae wanted me involved in the new diversity initiative the company was launching. When I came home early because the meeting ended ahead of schedule, I found G1 in Min-jae's home office, going through his files. What are you doing? I asked from the doorway. She jumped. Actually jumped. Then recovered quickly. Oh, Ade. You're back early. I was just looking for. Min-jae said he had some photos from our childhood I might want copies of. I thought they'd be in here. Min-jae's childhood photos are in the library, in clearly labeled albums. This is his private office with confidential company documents. Is it? She looked around like she'd genuinely made a mistake. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I wasn't thinking. I just walked into the first office I saw and started looking. I didn't touch anything confidential, I swear. But I could see the open drawer. The files that had clearly been moved. Get out, I said quietly. Ade, I made a mistake. Get out of this office. Get out of my house. And don't come back. You're overreacting. I wasn't doing anything wrong. You were going through my husband's private files. In our home, where you were invited as family. That's not a mistake. That's a violation. I'll explain to Min-jae. You'll explain nothing. Because I'm done. I'm done giving you chances. I'm done believing you've changed. I'm done pretending this is about family when clearly it's about something else. G1's expression changed. The sweet, apologetic mask fell away. What was underneath was harder. Colder. You know what your problem is? She said. You think you've won. You think because you married Min-jae and gave him a biological daughter, you're secure. You're not. You're still the foreign wife. Still the outsider. And no matter how many children you have, no matter how long you're married, you'll always be the one who doesn't quite fit. Get out. Neri will face it too. You know that, right? The colorism. The racism. The constant questions about whether she's really Korean enough. Jin has it bad enough being adopted. But at least he looks Korean. At least people don't immediately know he's different. Neri, though, she shook her head. Poor thing. She'll spend her whole life being too black for Korea and too Korean for everyone else. Get the fuck out of my house. Such language. Very unladylike. But I suppose that's the cultural difference showing. I grabbed her arm. Not hard, but firmly, and walked her to the front door. If you ever come near my children again, I said, voice shaking with controlled rage, I will destroy you. Legally, socially, professionally. I will make the embezzlement scandal look like a minor footnote. Do you understand me? G1 pulled her arm free. You can't threaten me. Halmiani invited me. Halmiani doesn't live here. I do. And you are not welcome. I opened the front door. Leave. Now. She left. And I immediately called Min-jae. If you've ever had to protect your family from someone wearing a smile, hit that like button. Because what I found in Min-jae's office after Ji-won left would reveal exactly why she'd really come back. And it had nothing to do with redemption. After I called Min-jae and told him to come home immediately, I went back to his office. I shouldn't have touched anything. Should have waited for him to get there. But the open drawer was calling to me like a siren's song. Inside were files, company files, merger documents, strategic plans for the next quarter, confidential information about negotiations with international partners, and a file labeled Succession Plan, Revised. I pulled it out. Read it. Felt my blood turn to ice. It was a proposal, drafted 3 weeks ago, suggesting that given the complexity of the current succession arrangement, with both an adopted heir and a biological heir who was mixed race, perhaps the company should consider alternative options. Alternative options that included bringing in external management, selling the company, or appointing a family member who could ensure traditional Korean corporate values. A family member like, say, Min-jae's recently returned sister who'd spent 10 years in corporate positions and was fully Korean, with no complicated succession questions. This wasn't about redemption. This was a coup. When Min-jae arrived 20 minutes later, I handed him the file. Watched his face as he read it. Watched the color drain. Watched his jaw clench. "She's working with someone," he said finally. "This level of detail, this specific knowledge of board concerns, she didn't write this alone." Daein Industries? I suggested. The rival company that had tried to use the pregnancy announcement against us. "No, this is internal. Someone on our board fed her this information. Someone who wants me out as CEO." He pulled out his phone. Made a call. "David, I need you to dig into my sister's finances for the past 6 months. Who she's been meeting with. Who's funding her. Everything." Pause. "Yes, I'm sure. Do it." He hung up. Looked at me. "I'm sorry," he said, "for bringing her back into our lives. For believing my mother when she said Ji-won had changed." "For, your mother knew," I interrupted. "She had to have known. This is too calculated. Too strategic. This is another test." "What are you talking about?" "Think about it. Halmiani brings Ji-won back. Ji-won starts gathering information. Someone drafts this proposal. And who benefits when the family is in chaos? Who gets to swoop in and solve the problem?" Min-jae's eyes widened. "My mother. She's creating a crisis so she can come back as head of the family. So we'll beg her to take control again because we can't handle it ourselves. Or," I said slowly, "she's testing whether we can handle internal threats. Whether we've learned to fight back against family, not just outsiders. Either way, she's manipulating us." "Again," I corrected. "She's manipulating us again. And I'm done being a chess piece." I pulled out my phone. Called Halmiani. She answered on the second ring. "Daughter-in-law, how lovely to hear from you. We need to talk," I said. "At the estate. In 1 hour. And you're going to tell me the truth about why you really brought Ji-won back." "I've already explained. The truth. Not the pretty story about redemption and family. The actual truth. Or I'm taking my children and leaving. For good this time. And you can explain to the board why the CEO's wife and both heirs just walked out." Silence on the other end. Then, 1 hour. "Bring Min-jae." She hung up. "You threatened to leave," Min-jae said. "I did. Did you mean it?" I looked at him. At this man I'd married 3 years ago, who I'd fought beside through corporate warfare and succession crises and public scandals, who'd chosen Jian over bloodline, who'd stood by me when his own mother manipulated us. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'm tired. I'm so tired of fighting, of being tested, of having our lives turned into strategy games. And if this doesn't end, if your mother doesn't stop, then yes, I might mean it." He nodded slowly. "Then let's go get some answers." We left Neri with Seo-rin, took Jin to a friend's house for a playdate, and drove to the estate like we were going into battle. Because in a way we were. Halmiani was waiting in her study. Ji-won was there too, sitting in a chair looking significantly less confident than she had that morning. "You wanted the truth," Halmiani said before we'd even sat down. "Here it is. Yes, I brought Ji-won back as a test. Yes, I knew she'd gather information. Yes, I anticipated she'd overstep boundaries. That was the point." "What was the point?" I demanded. "To see if we'd break? To see if you could destroy our marriage by bringing in someone who'd attack our children? To see if you'd fight back," Halmiani corrected. "Against family. Against me. Against the systems of manipulation I've built around you." She stood. Walked to her desk. pulled out a folder. This is Ji-won's proposal for alternative succession. The one she drafted with help from 2 board members who want Min-jae removed as CEO. The same board members who questioned Jin's legitimacy, who celebrated your pregnancy as securing succession, who represent everything wrong with traditional Korean corporate culture. She handed the folder to Min-jae. I know about it because I helped arrange it. I put Ji-won in contact with these board members. I gave her the information she needed to make a credible proposal. I orchestrated this entire situation. Why? Min-jae's voice was barely controlled. Because I won't be here forever. I'm 71 years old. And when I'm gone, you'll face threats you can't imagine. From the board. From competitors. From family members who think they deserve power. From everyone who believes the traditional ways should prevail. She looked at me. You've learned to fight external threats. The press. The shareholders. The mothers at Taekwondo class. But you've never had to fight family. You've never had to look at someone who shares your blood and say no. To cut them off. To choose your spouse and children over familial obligation. So you brought Ji-won back to teach us that? I asked. I brought her back to give you practice. Because when I'm dead, Ji-won and others like her will try exactly what she tried today. They'll use family connections. They'll manipulate. They'll position themselves as victims who deserve second chances. And you need to be able to recognize the pattern and stop it. That's insane, Min-jae said. That's survival. Halmini sat back down. Ji-won is exactly who I said she was. A woman who made mistakes. Who wants back in. But she's also opportunistic. Willing to use family connections for personal gain. Willing to gather information and sell it to the highest bidder. She's both victim and villain. And you need to learn to see both and respond appropriately. She turned to Ji-won. You failed the test, daughter. I gave you a chance at genuine redemption. A real opportunity to rebuild family relationships. Instead, you defaulted to old patterns. Espionage. Information gathering. Attempting to position yourself for power at others' expense. You set me up, Ji-won said. Her voice was bitter. You brought me back knowing I'd fail. Hoping I'd fail. I brought you back hoping you'd grown. Hoping 10 years had taught you something. Clearly, I was wrong. Halmini's expression was disappointed, but not surprised. You'll leave tonight. Return to your life abroad. The funds I've been providing will continue, but you will not contact this family again. You will not return to Korea. You will. You can't exile me again. I can. Because the alternative is prosecution. For breaking and entering. For corporate espionage. For violating the terms of your original agreement. Would you prefer that? Ji-won looked at Min-jae. Are you going to let her do this to me again? Your own sister. You went through my private files, he said. You tried to use information about my children against me. You made racist comments about my daughter. You're not my sister. You're a threat. And yes, I'm going to let her remove you from our lives. Permanently. Ji-won stood. You're all insane. This whole family is insane. You manipulate each other, test each other, use each other as pawns. And you wonder why I turned out the way I did? I learned from the best. She looked at me. You think you've won. You think because you stood up to me, because you kicked me out, you've passed some test. You haven't. You've just proven you're exactly like them. Willing to cut people off. Willing to choose power over compassion. Welcome to the Kong family. You fit right in. She walked out. And her words hung in the air like poison. Subscribe right now because what happened next would force me to question everything I thought I knew about family, boundaries, and whether Halmini's tests were making us stronger or just making us cruel. After Ji-won left, the 3 of us sat in Halmini's study in silence. Finally, Min-jae spoke. I need to know, he said to his mother. When you brought her back, were you hoping she'd fail? Were you using her to teach us a lesson, knowing it would hurt her in the process? Halmini considered the question carefully. I was hoping she'd succeed, she said finally. Genuinely hoping. Because if she had changed, if she'd truly grown, then it would have proven that people can evolve. That second chances matter. That family is worth fighting for. But you knew she probably wouldn't, I said. I suspected, based on her patterns, her history, her communications over the past 10 years. But I gave her the opportunity anyway. Because without opportunity, there's no chance for change. That's a rationalization, I said. You used her. You brought her back knowing she'd likely fail, and you used that failure to teach us a lesson. That's manipulation. Yes, Halmini agreed. It is. But it's also reality. Ji-won would have tried to come back eventually. with or without my involvement. Better to control the circumstances. To let her fail in a contained environment where the damage could be minimized. And if it couldn't be minimized? Min-jae asked. If she'd done real damage? Leaked actual confidential information? Hurt one of the children? Then I would have dealt with it. As I've dealt with every crisis this family has faced. Halmione looked tired suddenly. Older. You think I enjoy this? The manipulation. The testing. The constant warfare. I don't. But I do it because someone has to prepare you for what's coming. What's coming? I asked. Everything. Board members who'll try to remove Min-jae when I'm not here to protect him. Competitors who'll target the children. Family members like Ji-won who'll use connection as leverage. The press. The shareholders. Korean society's racism toward Neri. The adoption questions that will follow Jin his entire life. She stood. Walked to the window. I won't always be here to orchestrate safe environments for you to learn these lessons. So I do it now. While I can. While I'm able to control the damage. At what cost? I asked. To us? To you? To Ji-won, who just got exiled again. At whatever cost is necessary for you to survive. She turned to face us. You hate me right now? I understand that. You think I'm cruel and manipulative and monstrous. You're not wrong. But in 10 years, when I'm gone, and you face a crisis I didn't prepare you for, you'll understand. And maybe you'll forgive me. Or maybe we'll just be traumatized, I said. Did you ever consider that? That all this testing and manipulation and crisis creation is just damaging us? Making us paranoid? Making us unable to trust? I've considered it, Halmione said. Every day? It's a calculated risk. But I believe the alternative, leaving you unprepared, is worse. That's not your decision to make, Min-jae said quietly. It is. Because I'm the one who built this empire. I'm the one who's held this family together through 3 generations. I'm the one who knows what it takes to survive at this level. She sat back down. You can resent me for it. But you can't say I didn't prepare you. We left the estate as the sun was setting. Drove back to the city in silence. Retrieved Jin from his playdate and Neri from Seo-rin. Put the kids to bed. And finally, at midnight, collapsed on our couch. Do you think Ji-won was right? I asked Min-jae. That we're becoming like them? Cruel? Willing to cut people off? I think, he said slowly, that boundaries are not cruelty. That protecting our children is not manipulation. That choosing our immediate family over extended family obligations is not wrong. But I also think my mother is damaging us. Slowly. With every test. Every crisis. Every manipulation disguised as preparation. He looked at me. I don't want to become like her. I don't want our children to grow up thinking this is normal. That love requires warfare. So what do? We set boundaries. Real ones. We tell my mother that the tests stop. That we're done being manipulated. That if she wants to be in our lives, it's as grandmother, not puppet master. She'll say we're not ready. That we need more preparation. Then we prove her wrong. He took my hand. We face whatever comes next without her orchestration. We handle our own crises. We make our own mistakes and learn from them ourselves. We take control of our family's narrative instead of letting her write it. That's scary, I admitted. It is. But it's also necessary. Because you were right. We're either going to be traumatized by her tests, or we're going to break free and become our own people. Our own family. And I choose freedom. Even if it means facing things we're not prepared for. Especially then. Because that's called life. And we deserve to live it without constant manipulation. I leaned against him. Okay. We tell her tomorrow. Together? Together. The next morning, we went back to the estate. Halmione was in her garden, as she often was lately, tending flowers. Looking peaceful. We need to talk, Min-jae said. She set down her gardening tools. I'm listening. The tests stop. Now. Today. You don't bring people back into our lives to test us. You don't orchestrate crises. You don't manipulate situations to teach us lessons. If you want to be part of this family, your grandmother. Advisor when asked. But not strategist. Not puppet master. Not general conducting warfare. Halmione looked at him for a long moment. And if I refuse? Then we're done. Not cut off. You'll still see the children. But supervised visits. No unsupervised time. No decision-making input. No involvement in our lives beyond surface pleasantries. You become the grandmother we visit on holidays, not the matriarch who controls everything. That's quite an ultimatum. It's a boundary, I corrected. There's a difference. She smiled slightly. Is there? From where I'm sitting, it looks the same. From where you're sitting, everything looks like strategy, Min-jae said. That's the problem. You can't see family relationships without calculating angles and preparing defenses and arranging tests. We're not your students. We're not your soldiers. We're your family, and we deserve to be treated like it. Halmione was quiet for several long moments. Then she said something I never expected. You're right. We both stared. I've been so focused on preparation that I forgot about presence. So focused on making you strong that I forgot to let you be happy. So focused on protecting you from future threats that I've become a present threat myself. She looked tired. Sad. Ji-won said something as she left. That I'd taught her everything she knew about manipulation. She was right. I taught her. I taught Min-jae. And now I'm teaching your children. And that legacy is not one I'm proud of. So you agree? I asked cautiously. To stop. I agree to try. She stood. I can't promise I won't see threats where you see opportunities. I can't promise I won't worry about scenarios you haven't considered. That's who I am. But I can promise to consult you before acting. To respect your decisions, even when I disagree. To be grandmother first and strategist second. That's all we're asking, Min-jae said. Is it? She looked at him. Because you're also asking me to watch you potentially fail. To face threats I could have prepared you for. To stand by while you make mistakes I could have prevented. That's harder than you think. It's called letting go, I said gently. It's called trusting that you raised a son who can handle his own life. It's called respecting that we're adults who deserve to make our own choices. Even bad ones. Especially bad ones. Because that's how people learn. Not through orchestrated tests, but through real life. Real consequences. Real mistakes and real recovery. Halmione nodded slowly. I'll try. That's all I can promise. I'll try to let go. That's enough, Min-jae said. We sat in the garden for a while after that. Talking about the kids. About Jien's upcoming 9th birthday. About Neri learning to crawl. About normal family things. It felt strange. Good strange. Like maybe, possibly, we'd just taken the first real step toward being a normal family. 3 months later, I was proven wrong. Because normal was never going to be an option for the Kong family. It was Jien who brought me the letter. He'd found it in the mail. Addressed to Kong Jien in careful handwriting. No return address. Can I open it? He asked. Something in my gut said no. I said to take it. To read it first. To protect him from whatever was inside. But I've been trying to let go too. To not helicopter parent. To trust. Sure, I said. He opened it carefully. Read it. And his face went white. What's wrong? I asked. Wordlessly, he handed me the letter. It was short, simple, and absolutely devastating. Dear Jian, my name is Park Seo-jun. I am 10 years old. I live in Busan with my adopted parents who are very nice. Last month, they told me I was adopted. They showed me papers about my birth mother. Her name is Kong Ji-won. She is your aunt. The papers say she gave me up when she was pregnant because she was too young and her family made her. I don't want to cause trouble, but I wanted you to know I exist. Because you're my cousin. And maybe someday we could meet. If you don't want to, I understand. But I thought you should know. From your cousin Seo-jun. I stared at the letter. Ji-won's son, the 10-year-old boy she'd given up, had somehow found us and was reaching out to Jian. Is it true? Jian asked. His voice was small. Do I have a cousin? Yes, I said. Because lying was pointless. You do. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because it's complicated. Because Ji-won's adoption was supposed to be closed. Because I stopped. Started again. Because adults make complicated decisions, and sometimes children get hurt by them. Can I meet him? And there it was. The question I'd been dreading. Because allowing this would mean opening a door to Ji-won's past. To family drama we'd specifically tried to avoid. To connections that Halmione would want to control and manipulate. But it would also mean acknowledging that Seo-jun was family. That he deserved to know his relatives. That his adoption didn't erase his biological connections any more than Jien's did. I need to talk to Appa, I said. And Halmione. And probably Ji-won. But maybe. If everyone agrees. If we can do it safely. Because you think he's dangerous? Jien asked. Because I think the situation is complicated. And complications can hurt people. And I don't want you hurt. Jien looked at the letter again. He sounds lonely. Like he just wants to know he has family. He probably is lonely, I admitted. And he does have family. We just need to figure out how to handle this properly. That night, we had an emergency family meeting. Me, Min-jae, Seo-rin, Halmiani. We sat around Halmiani's dining table like it was a war council. Because in a way it was. Ji-won's son found us, Min-jae said. He wrote to Jian. Wants to meet. Halmiani's expression didn't change. I see. You knew? I said. Not a question. I knew he'd been told about his adoption recently. His adopted parents contacted Ji-won last month. Asked if she wanted to be part of his life. She declined, but told them about the family. About Jian. And you didn't think to warn us? Min-jae asked. I thought Ji-won would handle it. Clearly, I was wrong. Halmiani sipped her tea. The boy is 10 years old. Old enough to make his own decisions about family contact. His parents are supportive. He's not trying to cause problems. He just wants to know where he came from. Like Jian did, Seo-rin said quietly. When he found out about Min-jae, he just wanted to know his father. This isn't different. It is different, Min-jae said. Because Ji-won is not a safe person. Because letting her back into our lives, even indirectly through her son, is dangerous. He's not Ji-won, I said. He's a 10-year-old boy who just found out he's adopted and wants to meet his family. Punishing him for his mother's mistakes isn't fair. Neither is exposing Jian to potential manipulation, Min-jae countered. So what do we do? Seo-rin asked. Tell him no? Tell a 10-year-old he can't meet his cousin because his mother made mistakes? How is that different from the board saying Jian couldn't be heir because of biology? The comparison landed. We sat in silence. Finally, Halmiani spoke. Meet him. Supervised. Neutral location. Let the boys meet each other. Let them be cousins. But keep Ji-won out of it. Make it clear this is about the children, not the adults. And when he asks about his mother? I asked. When he wants to know why she gave him up. Why she's not here. Tell him the truth, Halmiani said. That she made mistakes. That the family was complicated. That she thought adoption was best for him. That she loves him, but from a distance. Children can handle truth. It's the lies that damage them. Speaking from experience? Min-jae asked pointedly. Yes, Halmiani said without flinching. I lied to all of you. Manipulated. Tested. And it damaged you. So learn from my mistakes. Tell the boys the truth. Let them know each other. And trust that family, even complicated family, is worth the risk. 2 weeks later, we met Seo-jun at a park in Seoul. He came with his adopted parents. A nice Korean couple in their 40s who looked nervous but supportive. He was small for 10, had Ji-won's eyes, and a serious expression that reminded me of Jian. Hi, Jian said, because he'd insisted on being the one to speak first. Hi, Seo-jun replied. And then they just looked at each other. 2 boys. 2 adoptions. 2 complicated family histories. Want to see my Lego dinosaur? Jian finally asked. Yeah, Seo-jun said. And just like that, they were cousins. They played for an hour while the adults watched. Made plans to meet again. Exchanged phone numbers so they could text. As we were leaving, Seo-jun asked the question I'd been dreading. Is my birth mother here? No, I said gently. She lives far away. And it's complicated. Because she doesn't want to see me? Because she thinks it's better for you if she doesn't. Because she wants you to have a happy life without complications. But I want to meet her, he said. Just once. Just to see what she looks like. To know where I come from. I looked at his adopted mother. She nodded slightly. Maybe someday, I said. When you're older. When you're ready to understand all the complicated parts. I'm ready now, he said. You think you are, I said. But trust me. Some complications need time. He didn't argue. Just nodded. And hugged Jian goodbye. In the car on the way home, Jian was quiet. Finally, he seemed sad. He probably is sad, I said. Finding out you're adopted is hard. Even when you have good parents who love you. Am I sad? Jian asked. The question caught me off guard. Are you? I asked back. Sometimes, he admitted. Not about Appa. Or you. Or Yama. But sometimes I wonder about the donor man. About who he was. If he knew about me. If he ever thinks about me. That's normal, I said. Biology doesn't determine family, but it does create questions. And questions are okay. Do you think Seo-jun will find his birth mom? Jian asked. I don't know. Maybe. When he's older. I hope he does, Jian said. I hope she's nice to him. I hope she doesn't make him sad. Me too, I said. And I meant it. Because despite everything Ji-won had done, despite the manipulation and the threats and the espionage, her son deserved better. Deserved to know where he came from without it destroying him. Just like Jian did. Just like Neri would someday. That night, after the kids were asleep, Min Jae and I sat on our balcony overlooking Seoul. We did the right thing, he said. Letting them meet. Did we? I asked. Or did we just open another door to chaos? Maybe both, he admitted. But family is chaos. That's the point. We don't get to choose who's related to us. We just get to choose what we do with those relationships. Very philosophical for 11 p.m., I teased. I'm a CEO. I'm paid to be philosophical. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then I said, your mother didn't orchestrate this. Seo Jun finding us. That was just life. Random. Uncontrolled. I know, Min Jae said. Weird, right? An actual organic family crisis. No tests. No manipulation. Just a 10-year-old boy making his own decisions. How do we handle it? I asked. Without Halmiani pulling strings? We figure it out as we go. We make mistakes. We learn. We trust ourselves. He took my hand. Just like we promised we would. That's simple. That complicated, he corrected. But yeah, we just do it. Together. If you've made it this far in this story, drop a comment about your own complicated family. About the relatives who appeared unexpectedly. About the children who connected across adult drama. About the times you had to choose between protecting yourself and being generous. Because these stories matter. Your stories matter. And hit that subscribe button because part 6 is coming. And it's the one where everything I thought I knew about Halmiani's endgame gets turned upside down. Because that deathbed confession she makes? It's not what any of us expected. 6 months after Seo Jun entered our lives, things had settled into a new normal. Jin and Seo Jun texted regularly. Saw each other monthly. Became actual cousins in more than just biology. Neri was walking. Babbling. Starting to show personality. Stubborn like her father. Observant like me. Min Jae was thriving as CEO. The diversity initiative was working. The stock was up. The board had stopped questioning his decisions. Halmiani had kept her promise. She was still strategic. Still observant. Still saw threats everywhere. But she consulted before acting. Respected our boundaries. Became something closer to normal grandmother. Seo Rin had started dating someone. A nice Korean man who worked in publishing. Who treated Jin well. Who didn't have any corporate connections or hidden agendas. We were happy, which should have been my first warning that something was coming. The call came at 3 a.m. on a Thursday. Halmiani's assistant. Voice tight with panic. She's in the hospital. You need to come now. We drove through empty Seoul streets like the city itself was holding its breath. Arrived at the hospital to find her already in a private room. Unconscious. Hooked to machines. The doctor explained, stroke. Significant. They'd done everything they could. Now it was about waiting. She woke up 3 hours later. Looked at Min Jae. Said, I need to tell you something. Before I can't anymore. And what she told us would explain everything. Every test. Every manipulation. Every crisis she'd orchestrated over the past 5 years. But that story, that final revelation, is for part 6. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications. Because what Halmiani confesses on what might be her deathbed will change everything you thought you understood about this family. About her tests. About why she pushed so hard for so long. And fair warning, it's going to hurt. Comment part 6 if you're ready for the truth. Because once you know it, there's no going back. The Kong family secrets are about to come out. All of them. And some secrets are heavy enough to break even the strongest families. See you in part 6.